if you think of yourself as the underdog, you will always impress yourself. You will always be willing to go and kind of be scrappy to get to that next level.
Today, we have a very special guest, don't we, Cindy?
Yes, we do. I am so happy to bring to you another episode where we highlight very exciting, successful professional women who have made marks here in their professional career. And we get to listen to her story and hear her trail and where she got to where she is. So we are very excited to bring you another spotlight series for today.
Yes, this is Kaeli Lindholm, and she is the CEO and founder of KLC Consulting. And as we mentioned in the bio previously, she's got many, many, many accolades, but we want to hear from Kaeli herself. So welcome, Kaeli. We are so happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, ladies. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this podcast. And honestly, I wish when I was in med device sales, I had you, because that would have been such an amazing outlet. And I for sure catapulted my career in another way. So I love what you guys are doing. And I'm excited that you invited me to be here.
Why,
Makes
thank
me so
you.
happy.
I know. It's awesome.
Little
Well,
happy
then,
dance.
so then tell us a little bit about your background, since you mentioned when you were in sales and how you got there. So can you just tell our listeners a little bit about you other than how we introduced you? Let's hear the story from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can definitely identify and have a special place in my heart with med device sales, because I think it was that experience that gave me the bridge to explore the entrepreneurial spirit that I knew I always had. But I essentially got hired into Bayer Healthcare, I was in the diabetes industry and sold blood glucose monitors right out of college. And then after 6 years, I was recruited into the aesthetic industry. And I worked for a company that was a medical device company that had capital $100,000 to $300,000 devices of capital equipment. And they were actually launching a skincare line. And they asked me to come be a first sales rep for this new product. Very different type of sale, different type of business model for the company. And I was like, yeah, I'm up for it. Give me the challenge, show me the way, get out of diabetes and into this cash pay aesthetic space. I can't wait. And I was schlepping around selling skincare and working alongside my device counterparts, and all males, by the way. And these guys, well, I was knocking on door, like showing up like on my milk run with my skincare products. These device guys were raking in tons of money, selling capital, and they were the ones who were always the most recognized and the most sort of like respected and sought after by the company and leadership and management. And I was like, I want to be that. I want to make that kind of money. And so I put my name in, my hat in for like just sort of buttered up to the manager on the device side. And I said, listen, if there's ever an opportunity, I'm really interested in exploring this, and here's all the reasons why you should count on me to be able to like do the job. And sure enough, a window opened eventually, and I got the opportunity to go and sell devices with the big boys, so to speak. And I was extraordinarily successful quickly. I think part of it is being a female in sales and having the gift of knowing how to listen and connect with people. And I had an intuition, and I had compassion and empathy and all of the things that make us so great at sales. But also, I know how to take no for an answer, and not take no for an answer, really, is what I should say. And I worked my way up the corporate ladder, and I found myself in a position of becoming a Western area sales director and managing a multi-million-dollar portfolio and a big team of 13 sales reps and covering half the United States. And I got to a point where at that time I had young kids at home. My husband was a VP of sales for a company, and we were like ships in the night, like, hey, where are you headed on the road? And I got to a point where I just felt like I had climbed that ladder, and that was it. And I was like, okay, now I'm here, made all the money that I wanted to make. I got the title. I knew there was more for me. And so, the story goes that I started my company, KLC Consulting, about 8.5 years ago. And it's just kind of been off to the races since.
Wow, what a story. I had no idea, Kaeli. That's impressive. I mean, and you're so young. I mean, you look amazing. So, she looks like she's 25, guys. So I don't know how you did this in such a short amount of time. I mean, a number of things are standing out to me right off the bat. First of all, your energy is very, it pulls you in. Everybody wants to be around.
Contagious.
Happy. And yeah, thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Happy, energetic, but full of knowledge people. And especially when you're women, it really helps be that enigmatic person. And you definitely are that. And so I can see why they took a leap of faith with you, probably because you were in a sea of men and they gave you that opportunity. And not only did you take it, but you ran with it and really shined. And I think that is something that, at least for all of our listeners out there, just right off the bat, if you want something, you need to go for it. You need to not sit back and think, oh, I don't know if I could do this. All the guys, all the reps are men, or all the leaders are men. There's no way I'm going to shine. Right off the bat with Kaeli's first message is, if you want something, go for it. And you have to have that belief within yourself. And I can feel that coming just straight from you.
And I love that. And you know what you did is you took the action step. You said, I sought out, hey, if there's ever an opening, maybe right at that moment, you didn't sit there and think about it for so long, but you allowed yourself to say, hey, if something comes up, this is what I want. You got to believe in yourself. And those qualities that you listed, I'm telling all these women out there, it's so true. It's this innate empathy and intuition that women have. And when you combine that with good listening skills and belief in yourself, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And Kaeli, you're one of these people, is a perfect example. So tell us more. I'm getting excited.
Tell us more.
This is getting good.
Well, no, I love what you say about that, because I think it's easy to say, like, go for it, right? Like with my clients will be like, okay, I can get you over to the edge. And then like, you got to just go. You have to also believe in it. You also have to know that, like, okay, there's something there for me that is going to be better, even though I don't know what it is, then I'm going to challenge myself. And for me, like, my mission in this world is just like to squeeze every last bit of juice out of the lemon. And I think like one really important reframe, like as I was thinking about just the skills that I have as an owner of a business and leading a team. And it really started from back being a kid and being an athlete. And I think if you look at yourself as the underdog in a great way, like, I'm always going to be the underdog and not try to feel like, well, I don't have it all figured out yet, and I'm going to wait until then. If you think of yourself as the underdog, you will always impress yourself. You will always be willing to go and kind of be scrappy to get to that next level. And I think it started when I was a kid, and even my first like the big time premier club team I wanted to play for. And I finally got the chance to go try out for the team. And I remember going up to the huddle, and these girls like were lifting their shirt up to wipe the sweat off their face. And every single one of them had a 6-pack. And I was like, am I going to look like this if I start playing for this team? But my dad was always all about, the battle is won in the practice, right? It's about what you do on a daily basis. And he would literally pull up his chair. Even when I had a driver's license, he would bring his little chair to my practice and he would sit and watch me train. And when I got the opportunity to even just try out for this team, he was like, listen, you're not going to be the best player out here. You're not number one, right? But what do you have? What's in your control? You can be the hardest working. You can show up in the front of the line. And we used to train and have to run 6 miles before practice. And he would be like, I don't care if you have to barf and get back up, keep running, like, you better. And he would watch and make sure I came in like in the top 3, in those runs. And so I think it's like you start to develop these habits of just knowing that, look, there are things that make me me and that I have control over. And that is, I have control over the way I show up. I have control over the amount of effort and preparation and work that I put into it. And we start to get noticed for those things. And sure enough, I made the team, and eventually, that turned into a scholarship in college. And I can go back and relive sort of that mantra of, hey, I'm the underdog. And that is a big win. And I think for anybody here that's listening to this, that's like, hey, I want to achieve these things, or I want to beat my competition, or I want to be the best, or be known as this. You will be, and you can be. You just have to develop the habit of, how would I show up as an underdog? What would I do to become that, to achieve that? And what am I making decisions every single moment in alignment with that goal?
And that mentality it's amazing. And it does drive you. And a big shout out to you as being a Division I athlete. And this was for soccer, correct? I don't want to,
soccer player.
I want everybody to know. Yeah. And because you have to understand, to even become a Division I athlete, like, just that alone is a very small portion of the population. And then to actually go and perform. Can you just tell us a little bit about once you got there? I loved hearing how you practiced. And clearly there's going to be top athletes pulled, but your work ethic, was it different? Was it the same? And like, how did that work once you got to the Division 1 level?
Yeah. So just to correct, I played Division 2, but I think
Well,
that's
either way,
very
it's
important.
amazing.
No, thank you. Yes. But I think that's also an important part of my underdog story too, is that having a degree at a Division 2 school, I didn't have the big football team and a lot of the big things to be like, okay, all my friends went to USC and UCLA and I was at my state school, but guess what? My college was paid for. And I learned, I think work ethic is one piece of it. And also I talk a lot with our business owners we work with too, is the mindset of how you train off the field. And so there's a lot of what you do that the people don't see. You've heard the saying that how you do one thing is how you do everything. How do you recover? What's your nutrition? Do you sit in the ice bath, right? No one's seeing that. What are the things that you're doing off the field to prepare you? And I think one of the biggest overlooked or really underemphasized lessons that you can learn in your life through, be it certainly sports or in your career, is how to influence others. And I was always very good at building allies around me. And so whether it was the trainer, right, or it was somebody who I had a direct dotted line to who could influence the relationship that I had with this ecosystem in college or with my team or the bus driver, making sure that like, it's just the little things like, hey, can I squeeze my bag over there? Can you make sure that you pull up over here for me or whatever? And even in device sales, like I was always the one that would make friends with everybody that I could. Not so much that I don't want this to sound like it's inauthentic, but I think just understanding that everybody has a piece in the pie and is important to the success that you have. And I remember one of my first sales trying to get into this account, and I had a competitor who had been in the territory for years and years and years and years. And so like she got all the business. Nobody could even touch her. And I had this thought that I would just keep showing up and keep showing up and keep showing up. And someday she would go on vacation and somebody would need to call somebody and I would just be the next natural call or I'd be sitting there waiting for it. Right. And that happened, that she wasn't there. Their device broke down and it wasn't even my company's device, but you know that every other week I used to take donuts into the warehouse and I would make buddies and hang out with the technicians. And I had a service tech on call who happened to know how to go in and repair that device. I called him and he went and repaired that competitor's device. And you better believe I became a trusted advisor to that practice. And I ended up taking over market share over time. It didn't happen overnight, but because I showed up, I utilized and accessed and leveraged the resources around me. And so don't overlook that. I think we talk about working hard and the grit and the tenacity and all the things that go into it, but it's also a lot of hard work on the things that people don't see and don't recognize, and your willingness to do the things that most people won't.
So everything you just talked about, and it's funny because you brought it from college to medical to probably into your consulting, right? It's the same thing over and over again that you practice and preach, that you've done in your life that has worked extremely well. And I think for our listeners, one of the things that really stands out to me is building that circle of trusted advisors or trusted people and really being a team player, whether it's the guy in purchasing or in materials that, or engineering, wherever that was, where he could repair the device, or it was the bus driver where you could put your backpack because maybe there was no other place to put it and you needed to have it somewhere. It doesn't really matter the situation. It still stays the same. The entire story is the same, which is you're building that circle of people within your community that you can lean on when need to, and they can lean on you. And it's a give and take relationship. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's being authentic, because that's what we do with our friends. That's what we do with our family. Why would you not do that in your workplace as well? Because it ultimately brings you success when you need it. When you're called on, when that bell rings and you're finally called for that case or that doctor needs your product, you're going to get the first call because they've got your back. And I think that's something that's so important. And you're right. It is overlooked, Kaeli. A lot of times people don't see the hard work behind it and they don't see the smart things that you're doing behind the scenes. And that is 100% one of them that needs to be really mentioned and ticked off on that list of things to have.
Absolutely. Even in sales, you started learning, ultimately what we're talking about is really networking and how you're weaving all of these parts together in doing so, you talked about really aligning all of your people. If it's medical device sales, whether you're down in supply chain or you know the equipment people or you know who orders products to who lets you into the operating room. So how did you, on the flip side, tune out the noise and single out the negativity for those people that, you know what, I don't want this one to weave into my web? How do I find the good? How do you know to determine who you want close and who not?
Great question.
Okay. I love this question.
That's a great question.
So this is something I wish I had learned sooner. And it's something that as I built my company, especially since I built my business in an industry where I was so interconnected with people, and I found myself, when I started, I thought, I know so many people, that's going to be such a big advantage for me. And then you get going and realize, well, no, everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants a piece of what you have to offer. Oh, hey, come speak here, do this, do that. Oh, do you know anybody who needs this? Like, you realize you have to, sometimes having more around you and more influence and ideas and everybody else's opinion of what you should be, how you should be moving and building your business could actually become a negative. So I've had to get really, really good at focusing. And that all comes down to knowing what your core values are. And so I recommend for everybody to create, and I had to set core values for my company. And I realized those are so deeply interconnected to my personal values for myself. So my core values are to go all in, challenge myself to grow, and have fun. And so I use that filter in every, just the saying yes to come on this podcast. Like, do these girls, do they go all in? Do they challenge themselves to grow? And are they fun? And the answer was yes to all three of those. And so it was a no-brainer for me. But when you think about building your own personal brand, right, as a professional or your company, or you have to really be careful about how and who you align with, because you will become whitewashed into, oh, you know, I saw her there. She works with that person. She's part of that. Affiliate yourself with everybody. Instead, who I hire, put them through the core value filter. What branding agency I work with, do I like the people? Do they fit those core values? So I think if you think about what your core values are, it's the same thing I teach my kids. Like, we as a household, we go all in, we challenge ourselves to grow, and we have fun. So I think that's the number one and the most simplistic way that I would recommend to somebody, like, to think about, like, how do you say no or like block out the negativity or the naysayers? I really do not pay any attention. I know exactly where I'm headed and what my mission is. And if you're not in alignment with me, you're not going to be a part of that. And the other beautiful part of that is when you find people who you are aligned with, they strongly help uplift you and take you further and give you those wings. And so you have those allies because you know that you guys are along, you know, on the road together and you have those aligned values.
What a great piece of advice, by the way. Thank you. I think, you know, that helps Cindy and I tremendously. I mean, just from where we are. But I think that also helps everyone that's out there listening. And you can take that if you're a sales rep, if you're a manager, if you're a VP of sales. It's like a mission statement of a company is what it reminds me of. And it's a mission statement of your, like your family you mentioned, as well as your business, and they have to align. And I love that because I think being authentic in today's world is so important because people buy from people that they trust and they want to be around. And they don't want to buy from just another salesperson or just somebody that's going to check the box and then leave. And they don't know when they're going to hear from them again. And, you know, can they trust them the next time they call them? So I think that that is really important to know what your core values are. And I think for those of you listening that don't know that list or you don't have that written down, spend some time. I mean, it really, for me, it would just be like a 5-10 minute, maybe 30 minute, sit down with a notebook and write down everything that means the most to me, and then come up with a mission statement or come up with those 3 things like you mentioned, Kaeli, and then repeat them day after day after day. Put it on a sticky note and put it in your car and look at it every day and make sure that you're aligning with those values and what you're doing in your business, because I feel like your core values come out every time you interact with your customers.
And I think just your simplicity of identifying it, because I think we all are who we are. We don't think too much about it. And that kind of brings me to, you know, we had the privilege to talk prior to this interview, and there was something that really caught my attention that I'd like you to walk through for our listeners. That's what you defined as the category of one. So will you walk us through that? Because I feel this aligns with how you can even pull these core values to know your strengths. And so I'll let you talk to us about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, and call it too, like a product of the beauty of social media. I mean, I think back, I'm like, if I started in sales when I had access to this, I could learn everything about my customer and I would be so much better. At the same time, though, we fall into this trap of comparisonitis. And I see this with many of the business owners I work with, where they may look up to somebody and say, I want to be like them, or look what they're starting now, or they're doing now. And they end up comparing their chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 10, so to speak. Or they start out on a goal that they didn't really ever want. They just feel like this is the next natural best thing of where I'm supposed to go. And I've always sort of had this contrarianism about me. I feel like a mentor told me once, when they zig, you zag. And so I always, when I see the market going one way, I literally shift and go the other way, because I believe that standing out and being unique is what's going to get you recognized and noticed. And so I think that if we stop comparing ourselves, and I think a lot of people like to think of like, well, what's an industry average, or what's the average? Or maybe you look at somebody else who's a competitor in your market or whatever and say, well, what are they doing? And just do better than them. Well, I had this conversation recently with my marketing team, and we were talking about our email marketing open rates. I'm just giving a kind of an example. And they were like, well, we're way above the average, because like the average in, digital online marketing is like 11% open, and our industry is 21% open, and we're 28. And I was like, but I don't care about the average. I want to be 100, And so like, I want you to show me what's the pathway for us to go from 28 to 38 to 48 to 58. I don't care. There's always going to be roadblocks. There's always going to be challenges along the way. And I think if you think of yourself as, instead of I'm one of these in a pool of many, or if you think like I am looking to be a category of one that no one else is, just that one off like shooting star, you make decisions differently. You show up differently. You start to see how much control you have over the way that you interact with people and with patterns of thinking that you have. And, the way that you show up in the world is going to be very different, because what you expect of yourself is unique. And so I have the good fortune, I think, just having had the experience that I had. I told this story when I talked to you guys about just even when I started my consulting agency, and 4 or 5 years in, I was working with male plastic surgeon, male this. And I'm like, where are all my girls at, And I was in Hawaii on a walk with my husband, and he was like, well, what are you going to do about that? Why aren't women working with you? And I said, I don't think women have the same like guts to like take risks and show up or themselves as men do innately. And so we looked at each other, and I'm like, that's it. That's the problem I need to solve. And I think that if I can help women realize and recognize that they themselves are a category 1 and there's something unique and special for them, we all have a dream implanted inside us. I really believe that. And I feel like how could you really access that and show up and live that out every single day? Like, when you meet those people that are like, they're in their zone, that they've really insourced that dream. That to me is somebody who's living in their category of 1.
Oh my gosh, so inspiring. Kaeli, can we just hire you? I mean, this is unbelievable. It's so inspiring to hear you talk, because you're right. I've always thought about that too. I'm like, I just believe that this dream inside of me. Well, I've always said this, that I feel like a lot of people will try and pull that light from you. When you have this great light, there are so many people out there that try and shadow that light or pull it from you or make you feel bad for that light. And it's like, no. You have to be strong enough to say, absolutely not. I believe in myself. I believe in my dream. I believe in this next step. I'm going for that promotion. I'm going to go out on my own and become an entrepreneur and change people's lives. And I think that is what has made you so successful. And that is what will make everyone successful. It's sad because women, way more so than men, we tend to shadow that. We tend to tell ourselves we can't do it, or we're not cut out for it. Or there's so many more men than women out there. What makes me think I'm going to be able to do this when they're already doing it? And the truth is, it's inside of you. You just have to believe in yourself, and you have to go for it. And you have to know, and Cindy and I talk about this a lot, you have to know you're going to work harder than every man out there to get what you want. But the payoff is so great, because it absolutely is worth it when you put that effort in, because you know that you've done it. You believe in yourself. But I'm like tearing up. It makes me upset when women doubt themselves and they're like, I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. And you've done it. And that is just so awesome.